Hi guys, today our grammar class is about capitalizing and punctuating sentences, correcting run-on sentences, and some information in general from about punctuation marks. Today is November 24th and this session is being recorded. So, let's see run-on sentences. What are they? Run-on sentence joins together two or more sentences that should be written separately. You can correct a run-on sentence by either one of these two methods. The first one is dividing it into separate sentences, okay? Because a run-on sentence, as I said before, it has too much information that you can separate, okay? Or you could create a compound sentence. You can rewrite this run-on sentence as a compound sentence. Remember that the compound sentence is that sentence that has like two simple sentences joined by a comma and the word and or but. So we have these two methods for correcting run-on sentences. When you do this, remember that if for example you divide them into separate sentences, you need always to start a new sentence with a capital letter and end it with a period. Okay, if you're cutting this run-on sentence in half with two simple sentences, remember the second sentence you need to capitalize the first letter and end each sentence with a period or the proper punctuation symbol, okay? Rewriting it as a compound sentence, you have to be careful with the initial capital letter and the comma, the word that you're going to add, if it's an and, an or a but. It will depend on the sentences that you're joining. You have to pay attention to the meanings to see which word is the more appropriate, okay? All right, so we have these two methods, all right? Let's see an example. Here we have North America wasn't explored in the early 1800s. No one had traveled from coast to coast. So here we have a long sentence that it would be better if we could read it as two separate sentences or as a compound sentence. Okay, it has a lot of information. So let's see the first method. If we separate this into two simple sentences, we have the following. We have North America wasn't explored in the early 1800s. No one had, period. No one had traveled from coast to coast. Okay, it's better that way. Or we could rewrite it as a compound sentence, as I said before, like this. We could say, North America wasn't explored in the early 1800s, and no one had traveled from coast to coast. See that we're adding a comma here and the word and we're rewriting this sentence here as a compound sentence. It's more fluid, it's more understandable, and it sounds better when you add the pause, the comma, and the word and. Well, in fact, you already had the comma, but you needed the word and, okay? Let's see, more examples. Let's tell whether these sentences are run-on or not, okay, from the ones here. For example, the first sentence, people were curious about the wild country, comma, and they dreamed of adventure. So in this case, we have a compound sentence. It's not a run-on sentence. As you see, we have a comma, we have the word and. So in this case, we do not have a run-on sentence, okay? So it's not a run-on. Number two, the Rocky Mountains were dangerous. People needed a clear path to the west. In this case, we have like two separate ideas that we could rewrite as two sentences, or we could rewrite it as a compound sentence. So in this case, we do have a run-on, okay? We could separate this into separate ideas, like, for example, the Rocky Mountains were dangerous, okay, period. Then we have capital P. People needed a clear path to the west. We could do that. Or we could rewrite it as a compound sentence like, for example, the Rocky Mountains were dangerous, comma, and people needed a clear path to the west. We could do that. Okay, but in this case, in this type of exercise, what we need to do is only to tell if it's a run-on or not. Okay. Number 3. In 1803, America bought the Louisiana Purchase. The new territory was huge. Again, here we have two separate ideas. We have the first idea, which is in 1803, America bought the Louisiana Purchase. And we have another idea that says that the new territory was huge. So they're all in the same sentence with no comma, no word and or but. So we have a run-on, okay? Number 3, the addition of the new land doubled the size of the United States. Here we have only one idea, that the addition of the new land doubled the size of the country. So this is a simple sentence, okay? This is not a run-on. Then we have, there were no roads in the new land, and the country was mostly forest. Here we have a compound sentence. As you see, we have the comma, we have the word and, we have two separate ideas that are joined by this. So we don't have a run-on here either. So it's not a run-on, okay? Now, the instruction says, correct the run-on sentences by separating them into two sentences or by forming a compound sentence. Label each correct sentence correct. Correct sentences are those that are not run-on and that we don't need to correct, okay? So, number 6. Meriwether Lewis led an expedition through the new territory. That is only one idea. This sentence is correct. Number 7. Lewis needed a partner and he hired William Clark. This is also a sentence that it's correct because we have two ideas joined by the comma and the word and, so this needs no correction, so this is also correct. Number 8, they looked for a path to the west. They searched for a waterway to the Pacific Ocean. Here we have two ideas. The first one is they looked for a path to the west. And we have a second idea, which is they searched for a waterway to the Pacific Ocean. They are not joined by commas and words like or, and, or, but. And this should be written as two separate sentences or a compound sentence. How we do that? Let's see. If we want to write them as two separate sentences, we would say, they looked for a path to the west, period. Then we capitalize this T from they, and we say, they search for a waterway to the Pacific Ocean. That would be the second sentence. If we want to rewrite it as a compound sentence, we will say, they looked for a path to the west, comma, and they searched for a waterway to the Pacific Ocean. We could do either way, okay? Number 9, they started their expedition in 1804, and they traveled for 3 years. This is already a compound sentence. So in this case, it's correct. Number 10, they had a Native American guide. Her name was Sakahawa. So in this case, we need to correct it. Okay. Oh, sorry. Let me go to the previous. In this case, we will need to correct this. We could say they had a Native American guide, period. Her name was Sakahawa. Okay. Or we could say they had a Native American guide, comma, and her name was Sakahawa. Okay. Number 11, everyone waited for the news. The expedition took 3 years. In this case, we have two separate ideas. The first one, everyone waited for the news. And the second idea is the expedition took 3 years. So, for example, if we want to write this as a compound sentence, we could say everyone waited for the news, comma, but the expedition took 3 years. And if we want to write them as separate sentences, we could say everyone waited for the news, period. We capitalize the T and say the expedition took 3 years, period. Number 12, Sakahawea led the led them through the Rockies. She was a knowledgeable guide. So here we have two ideas. The first one that she led him through the Rockies, and the second one that she was a knowledgeable guide. So we could either separate them or rewrite them as a compound sentence. Let's separate them first. Sakahawea led him, ooh, sorry, led them through the Rockies, period, capitalize the S and say she was a knowledgeable guide, period, and then we have two sentences. Or you could say Sakahawea led them through the Rockies, comma, and she was a knowledgeable guide. All right. Number 13, on the return trip, Lewis and Clark separated. They traveled two different rivers. We have two ideas. The first one, on the return trip, Lewis and Clark separated. And the second idea is they traveled two different rivers. So if we separate them into sentences, we should say, on the return trip, Lewis and Clark separated, period. Capitalize the T and say, they traveled two different rivers, period. Or you can rewrite it as a compound sentence and say, on the return trip, Lewis and Clark separated, comma, and they traveled two different rivers. Then number 14, the expedition showed the size of the country. Everyone was surprised. Here we can separate the two ideas. We could say the expedition showed the size of the country, period. Sorry. And then capitalize the E and say everyone was surprised. Or you can rewrite it as a compound sentence and say the expedition showed the size of the country, comma, and everyone was surprised. In fact, I think in this case it sounds better like a compound sentence. Number 15, it was a country of many natural resources. It was bountiful. We have two ideas. It was a country of many natural resources, and the second idea, it was bountiful. So you could separate them into two sentences, or you can rewrite it as a compound sentence. Separating them into two sentences, we'll say it was a country of many natural resources, period. Then you capitalize the I and say it was bountiful. Or you could rewrite it like it was a country of many natural resources, comma, and it was bountiful. Okay? Good. Now punctuation marks. This is like a review of what you already know about the punctuation marks, and I will advise you to copy all these charts that we're going to see in your notebook, okay? Because this is very important information that you should keep on your file. If you can print out this presentation from the PDF that it's in Academia, you can also paste it on your notebook. But please keep these charts because they will help you in the future. We have the first symbol, an apostrophe. Okay, we use the chart works like this. We have the symbol, the punctuation mark name, and how do we use it, okay? So the first one, the apostrophe. You add them to nouns in order to show ownership, sometimes with an S, other times without the S, as we will see when we see possessive nouns. And to take the place of missing letters when you make a contraction, okay? For example, when you say can't, which is the contraction of can and not, you put an apostrophe for the O that you're taking out, okay? For example, and the other N. And the slash, okay, this line here, tilde line, used to represent exclusive or inclusive, and divisions and fractions, and as a date separator. For example, when you write the date, remember you in numbers, you can use the slash to separate the day from the month from the year. The colon. The colon is used before a list series. When you're saying, okay, for this recipe, these are the ingredients. semicolon, and then you list the ingredients, okay? That's an example. The quotation marks, they're used to set up direct speech, quotation or a phrase. When you read a novel, for example, when one of the characters is speaking, what he says, it's inside quotation marks. Okay, that's setting off direct speech. Now we have the period. The period is used at the end of the creative and imperative sentences, as we saw on our first class, and is used to mark a full stop. The question mark is used at the end of interrogative sentences or questions. The exclamation mark is used at the end of exclamatory sentences. These are the sentences that express a strong feeling, remember that. Then we have the comma, and the comma has a lot of uses. These are just some of them, okay? They are used to separate items in a series or list before the conjunction in a compound sentence, to set up adverbs between adjectives, in dates, in numbers as a thousand separator, among other uses, okay? We have the semicolon. It's most commonly used to link two independent clauses that are closely related in thought. And it's used to make a pause that is longer than a comma, but shorter than a full stop, okay? And we have the hyphen. Do you have practice with the hyphen use in math a lot? Okay, we use it to join words and to separate syllables on a single word. And in math, to write the word name of numbers like 21, 22, 23. Remember, they all have hyphen. Parentheses are used to enclose explanations or other relevant information in a sentence. And brackets, that are used to isolate a segment of text or data from its surroundings, something like a comment, okay? All right, so we have here some exercises that we are doing in class, but they're very easy. For example, this is a comma, this is a question mark, this is a full stop, this is a semicolon, this is an apostrophe, then we have, we put this punctuation mark at the end of a normal sentence, period. We put this punctuation mark at the end of a sentence if it has direct questions, so is the question mark. We use this punctuation mark to show that something belongs to someone or some letters are missing. We use the apostrophe. We use this punctuation mark to join together two phrases in a sentence with a conjunction, for example, but, and to separate words in a list, we use the comma, okay? We use this punctuation mark to make a short pause in a sentence, longer than a comma, but shorter than a full stop, that is the semicolon. This is a colon, this is a hyphen. These are called speech marks or quotation marks here. And this is an exclamation mark, okay? Good. So, going back to what we saw at the beginning of our class, remember you can rewrite a run-on sentence to correct it as two separate sentences or as a compound sentence, okay? Now you need to go to Academia, see the wall post, or you can download this presentation's PDF, and you can click on this link. It's also on the wall post, and it will take you to this week's homework, okay? Don't forget to press submit at the end, and don't forget to do the homework, okay? Now we have confirmation emails, so just as you press submit, you will get a confirmation note with a grade, because the grade comes on a second email after the due date. The due date for this is next Monday, November 30th. So this is all for today, and thank you for watching. Okay.